Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Security Expo podcast. And today we are talking about AI-generated deepfakes and synthetic attacks. I'm joined by Paul McGee from Araya, a leading voice in the fight against emerging threats in identity security. Paul has long been an advocate around dealing with AI-generated deepfakes and synthetic attacks. And he explores one of the fastest growing challenges facing organizations and governments around the world. As artificial intelligence continues to evolve, so does its misuse. From manipulated videos or audio content designed to influence political outcomes to fabricated identities that bypass security systems and enable large-scale fraud, these attacks are redefining what cyber deception looks like. Paul will share his international case studies that show just how real and costly these attacks have become, including instances where deepfakes were used to impersonate senior executives in live video calls to authorize fraudulent transactions. He'll also explain how emerging technologies such as voice biometrics, behavioral analytics, and so on are being deployed to detect and deter these threats and how they can fit into a multi-layered security strategy. Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Welcome. Pleasure to be here.
It's always fun sitting there having someone talk about you rather than to you, isn't it? Is there anything more awkward? I suppose to set the scene for the people who are hearing about this subject for the first time, you describe deepfakes and synthetic identity attacks as one of the most significant challenges facing organizations today. How widespread is the threat already? And what do you see as the most immediate risks to business and government?
Yeah, thanks, John. It's an exciting subject. It's a scary subject and one that has snuck up on a lot of people.
So, I think it's terrifying to most people, though. Sorry
yes.
for jumping in, because we're sort of at this point now where if I were to take what we're going to discuss to its to its most extreme logical extent, I think a lot of people are sitting there asking themselves, how do we trust anything that we see in the media or online anymore?
Absolutely. And it is a multi-headed beast. It's no one individual or one technology or one process solves this problem. Like lots of complex issues, it's a combination of rules, regulations, organizational behavior about not allowing deepfake to infiltrate their systems, despite what the bad actors are doing. And I talked this morning about how we need better regulation, we need better policy, but we also need better avenues to address the people that are making these deepfake tools that are allowing it to be used for nefarious purposes. Now, there's lots and lots of good reasons why we can have deepfake faces and voices to help make our entertainment better, to allow organizations to propagate their podcasts in multiple different languages or into different areas. There's lots of really good reasons why we shouldn't limit the use and the creative capability of organizations to use deepfake. In fact, the oldest forms of deepfake that we would recognize were developed in the 1930s in Hollywood, where they used to hand color in film to make it look like things are happening in the movie that otherwise would be impossible. Now, that used to cost millions of dollars, but it took months and months to do, but it allowed people to believe what they saw on the screen.
Yep.
Fast forward, technology now allows that same manipulation to happen in minutes by amateurs using free software that's downloadable from the web. So it's the speed and accuracy of that ability to fool the eyes. So this concept of don't trust your lying eyes because you might be getting lied to, and don't trust your lying ears because somebody can create a voice that sounds like your daughter or son, and when that daughter or son rings from some strange location saying, I've been arrested, I'm in trouble, my credit cards have been stolen, can you put $10,000 into the bank account of person X? I'll give you their number so that I can get myself out of jail. And you think it's the person you've grown up since a baby.
Yeah.
And you believe your ears, and so you're transferring money out of your account into some strange account because you believed what you heard on that phone call, that frightened phone call.
Is it reasonable to say that the speed of the development is the thing that's caught a lot of people off guard? Because I imagine Hollywood's pretty good at predicting the future.
Yep.
And we've known for a long time that this stuff is coming.
Mm.
But if I even just take it through my own lens, having sort of lived in the video production world for a while, the quality of what we saw in 2023, where you would look at even the best AI generated videos and just go, well, that's garbage.
Yep.
Compared to what you're seeing now, where you literally could not tell without knowing that it's fake. The speed of that development has just been breathtaking.
Yes. And that, so there's a statistic that I used in this morning's speech where on Fido, one of the bigger players in the video space, reported of 1,000, more than a 1,000% increase in the use of deepfake video to perpetuate fraud. 1,000% in 1 year. That's not a increase. That's not even a fast increase. It's an avalanche. It's an avalanche because it's now available. It's people can. It takes no skill at all to get on a computer, start a search program with Google to find tools that allow you to make stuff that used to take, in 5 years ago, would have taken tens of thousands of dollars and weeks of work. And you can now just download the technology and with simple 1 or 2 photos of your victim, create an image that is now realistic, not just to the naked eye, but really realistic to people who are interacting with that fake person.
Yeah. I mean, we know that video has come along in leaps and bounds. We know that voice cloning is now incredibly accurate.
Yep.
I mean, can you give us some examples of where deepfakes have been in use to, let's say, impersonate executives in real-time video calls to authorize fraudulent transactions?
Yeah, the largest publicly known, the one that people are allowed to talk about because it's in the wild, was a Hong Kong business that lost $7 or $8 million in one transaction where they thought the CFO and the CEO had called a meeting on their internal Teams infrastructure, and were explaining that they had this unusual scenario where they've just done a deal and we've got to transfer X amount of money from this account to that account. So it was well researched, it was well carried out, but it wouldn't have worked if they didn't look real and sound real. It was a hurried call, so nobody really got a chance to talk too much to them. So, in fact, the dialogue was one way rather than two-way.
Yep.
And so the people at the other end of that conference call did what they thought they had been told to do by the 2 most senior executives in the organization. And lo and behold, it was all made up. It was all fiction.
Yeah. I mean, it's frightening, isn't it? And I have seen examples in the last few months where I imagine that this was a call that was pretty much, here's one we prepared earlier, and they've just live streamed it. But I've seen some examples recently of people being able to face swap in real time.
Yes. Yeah, you can see, and the thing that, if you really want to know how rampant this technology is, look at what your kids are doing. So kids today, with their mobile phones, are doing all sorts of manipulation of face. So they'll morph their face with another friend's face. They'll actually create a new face for themselves. They'll make themselves look older and younger. And so they can be they don't go to Zoom school or Teams. They'll be they'll be using their camera to have a video call with their mate, and they'll give themselves a whole new look, make themselves look older, and it's just fun. They're playing, and they'll make themselves have all sorts of silly hats or beards or whatever else, and it's all in real time.
Yeah.
And they will grow up knowing that their eyes can be deceived by technology.
So then I guess that raises the very valid question, what can we be doing to defend against this stuff? Because, I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So my passion in this environment is I don't think there is one silver bullet, and there will never be one silver bullet that solves this problem. The starting point is awareness.
Yeah.
And being aware that this may happen. And the end point is continuous adaptation of all of the other bits. So I talk about an arsenal of weapons. I work at a company called Araya. We are a voice biometric specialist. For over a decade, we've been experimenting with and working with AI to detect AI.
Right.
for some of our engineers, this is a really exciting time because for the first time ever, our technology is being tested because in the past, the human ear could hear, but it wasn't really a human voice.
Yep.
Now, the human ear can't tell, but our technology can. Technology, especially voice technology, is much, much more, not a bit, not 10 times better, but thousands of times better at detecting a synthetic voice versus a human. Our human development was never exposed to voice that wasn't within sight. So we saw the person we were talking to, so our brain didn't have to do a lot of working out as to whose voice it was.
Yep.
So our technology is very, very, very good at detecting whether this is a real voice, a human voice, or whether it's a synthetic voice. Now, the better the synthetic voice gets, the better our models have got to become. But it's an AI race, and we use AI to build better detection, and somebody will come out with a better engine, and we'll use more AI to solve the issue of can we detect whether it's real or an AI.
But how easily is it to detect whether it's AI using technology? And I'll give you an example. I used a new platform a little while ago to create a podcast with my voice based off something that I had written. And just out of interest, I played it to my wife and said, tell me what you think about this. And at the end of it, she was like, the only way I could tell that that wasn't you is that the person speaking on the podcast was way smarter than you. And I'm like, yeah, well, that sounds about right, because he's got access to all of the knowledge in the world with ChatGPT 5.
So does your wife know my wife? Because that's the same sort of thing that I
Yeah.
So the answer, as I said before, there's an arsenal of weapons needed, starting with awareness. So we know that we might be getting fooled. So what are we going to do about that? We don't rely on one factor. If in the perfect world, in a Zoom call where the CEO's on telling me to do something, I want to be listening in the background with technology to determine, is this the voice of the CEO or a fake voice?
Yep.
I also want to be using facial recognition technology to make sure that the face looks real, not fake.
Yep.
And I want to match the lip movement with the speaking sounds to make sure the lip sync is in sync. And then I want to make sure that my video conferencing stuff is actually secure and not able to be manipulated by having somebody drop in from an unknown location without the right sort of cyber security lockups. And then I also want to have business processes and systems that make sure that even if I get fooled, we're not allowed to do that sort of value transaction without some more checks and balances to make sure that we know which bank account it's going into so that we can get it back if there's a problem.
Yeah, because I guess the checks and balances side of thing is going to be the important aspect moving forward, because as the technology gets better and better, it's going to become, I imagine, more and more convincing as time goes on. So is this where we have to start going back to the older, less technical security principles of, for lack of a better term, let's use some form of two-factor authentication where, everyone pre the meeting is issued with a special code and they need to know that code. Yeah. And as you said, we can't conduct transactions over a certain value. And what other things can we throw in there?
Yeah, look, and as I said before, there's an arsenal of weapons needed to protect ourselves going into the future. One of the things that I am reminded of is the old time issues of passwords and PIN numbers and things like that. They don't work. They are not. They are so fallible that they're relying on them is actually part of the. We are not sufficiently informed. We're not aware enough. Every password that anybody's ever used has been cracked and hacked because every big data breach, they find so we've got an email address, we've got a password, and we've got something else. We do another data dump out of another insurance company or a government department or an airline or whatever. The technology of matching up potential usernames and passwords, you can buy passwords by the bucket load for cents.
And I imagine that's only going to get worse with the onset of quantum computing.
Well, it's just the amount of data that's in the wild and then the ability to shake and mix that data up. So every time you change this password, it goes to the next numerical character along, or the next the dollar sign gets replaced by the ampersand, or the ampersand gets replaced by
Yeah.
the internal bracket or the external bracket, and it doesn't matter how complex the password is. I'll know what. I'll give me a couple of guesses, and I'll work out what your next password was made, and you'll forget it, but I won't, because I'll have worked it out. So the
Yeah.
bad actor is actually more likely to get into your account than the good person who can't remember that overly complex and far too infrequently used password.
Okay. I mean, given the pace of AI innovation, do you believe the defenders can keep up with the attacks? And what does the future of this battle look like? How should security leaders prepare for what's coming next?
Look, the thing that the age that I am now, if I put the wisdom hat on for it, every time there's a new threat, this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And every time, like I remember, and I'm far too old, but when the color photocopiers came out, what's going to happen to our currency? Everybody's going to manipulate the currency. Well, we came up with better currency, and currency is not a big factor anymore, because it's, our biggest faults aren't in buildings, they're in databases.
Yeah.
And so the issue for us today is we have got the answer, but it's multifaceted. It's awareness, it's regulation, it's good practice, it's behavior of the people who are good actors, like the people making deepfake. It's easy to put a watermark in, it's easy to erase it, but if the more that watermarks and other embedded information inside deepfake allows deepfake to be used for appropriate purposes, but just like currency, we can see that it's not real because it hasn't got the right information in that in the packets that are being sent.
Yeah, I guess part of the challenge here too is that, there's no point putting a hard word on the, shall we say, honest or genuine operators in this space to say, okay, you've got to put some sort of provenance marking into your software, because they're not the ones that we have to worry about. It's all the people peddling stuff on the dark web.
Yes, so but most of, yes, the dark web is the place where you go to buy illegal stuff. The thing, you don't have to go to the dark web to buy deep fake technology that can imitate a voice or a face. It's freely available in the real world, and often for either cents or free.
Yeah.
And so those legitimate players can do the things that legitimate organizations like airlines and others do, is, okay, how do we operate this airline safely? How do we operate this technology that allows podcasters to manipulate their pods and make it available in every language? That's a good idea. Let's allow that legitimate use. But let's make sure that it becomes easier for good actors to protect themselves against bad actors.
Yeah.
And that's not the only bullet in the arsenal, but it's one of many. Our technology is a little bit like a couple of decades ago, malware or spyware or viruses were going to kill the internet and everything associated with it. And then we came up with software that protected against. We have software that detects the illegal use or the inappropriate use of deepfake for voice, and the same type of technology is available for face.
Okay, and at this point in time, it's fairly robust and reliable?
The good stuff is, I would be very careful about taking any claim in this space at face value. I'd be looking for independent NIST standard type testing, and who is the organization saying we can catch it? Because the difference between catching relatively, we call it cheap fake and deep fake.
Yeah.
Cheap fake is somebody just trying something out, and it looks real, but it's easy to detect. Deep fake is actually somebody's put a bit of effort into this to make it sound and look like the real person. We've got to make sure that the technology we're using to detect is up to the job.
So if I am the security manager for a government agency or a large corporate or whatever it may be, and I'm looking to invest in technology that will help me be more defensive in this battle, what things, you've mentioned the NIST standards or National Institute of Standards and Testing.
Yep.
I mean, what do I need to be looking for? What are the things that I need to pay attention to make sure I'm just not making the problem worse?
Yeah. So it's a proportional response. The first thing when selling to organizations that are potential targets of this sort of activity it's never rely on one thing. Even our technology, I say, this is part of your defense network. What if you're looking at digital identity? We want to check, is the device being used to come to us? Is it trusted? Is it unknown? Or is it untrusted?
Yep.
That sets the beginning of the process. Then how sure are we that that device hasn't been spoofed or hasn't been manipulated to look like a trusted device? And there are lots of processes, some of which we provide, to make sure. Let's look back into the network infrastructure and interrogate the device. There's a new an emerging standard within the telcos which allow access now to the carrier infrastructure information, so I can tell where that call is, or that access is being originating from, not where they have spoofed it from via a proxy server.
Yeah.
And so if you check the device, that's the first stage. Now, is it the correct and authorized person using the device? And we use biometrics to do that. If we have access to a camera on the device, then let's get a picture of the person, and does that compare to the picture that I have on file of that person? And is it live? And is it real? And then we're listening to them talk. So let's listen to them talk and compare that to the voice print we have on file for them, so that we can make sure that it's the authorized person using the authorized device. And then, as I said before, and let's also make sure that we're following processes and procedures that limit the risk if those systems have been overcome by some state-backed actor that's found a way to overcome those defense mechanisms.
And is this where it comes back to common sense approaches and practices within security, where we might segment our communications and say, okay, this is considered, open source, this is considered sensitive, this is considered sensitive compartmentalized. Anything that's sensitive or sensitive compartmentalized, that has to be face-to-face discussions. We can't have those discussions over a Zoom call or a telephone call.
And there will be times when you, for whatever reason, there's the battlefield. You're not going to get the soldier to come and ask you in the Pentagon whether or not we can fire that bullet. But there are going to be systems and process and backups and that allow. Let's make sure that this is right, and not just rely on one. The technology said it must be the right person, so let's allow it. Let's have a system and process and a backup that makes sure that it's checked and double checked. And today we have the capability of doing that. It's just without the awareness of what might go wrong, those systems and backups and processes aren't being deployed as well as they should be.
So, Paul, if people want to know more about you or the technology that you're working on, where do they find you?
Thank you very much. So, Araya is an Australian company. We operate globally. The best way to get hold of us is www.arayasystems.com, or give me a call, or give our office in London or the US a call as well.
And we spell Araya, A-U-R-A-Y-A?
Yeah, just so we can really confuse everybody that doesn't know how to say Araya.
All right, well, look, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, and we look forward to catching up again.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.